Chapter 91. The Sea God Legacy Inheritor appears outside. Qian Mochen's mental force had been locked onto Bo Saixi. Seeing her face start to turn pale and her body sway, he cursed the Sea God in his heart for being shameless and immediately called out to Gu Yuina to make a move. You must know that back then, Tang Sen only had to endure one wave and it was over, yet it had already been the time it takes to burn an incense stick, and Bo Saixi's trial still hadn't ended. This Sea God's trial for Tang Sen back then couldn't even be called going easy. It was clearly opening up the floodgates. Qian Mochen and Gu Yuina's mental force rushed in together, only to see that wisp of the Sea God's divine thought continuously launching attacks against Bo Saixi, each wave fiercer than the last. It looks like this wisp of the Sea God's divine thought hasn't woken up yet. Gu Yuina appeared in front of Bo Saixi, blocking the mental impact for her. Seeing that someone was actually interfering, this wisp of divine thought immediately accelerated its attack frequency. Qian Mochen condensed a flame-long staff in his hand, stepped down with his foot, and his figure appeared above the Sea God's divine thought. The long staff descended toward the Sea God's divine thought with immense force. The Sea God's divine thought extended a palm, reaching out casually. When the palm touched the long staff, the flames on it spread along the Sea God's palm. The contempt on the Sea God's face instantly switched to pain. This person's flames actually caused immense damage to the soul. The Sea God's divine thought instinctively withdrew its hand to defend, but the long staff's momentum did not decrease, smashing the Sea God into the seabed with a single staff strike and instantly creating a human-shaped crater several meters wide on the seabed. Qian Mochen didn't give the Sea God's divine thought any chance to catch its breath at all, chasing it into the seabed and bringing staff strike after staff strike down. Let you be arrogant? Let you toss people around so hard? What if it's not that so-and-so you can't take out your God position? On the surface of the sea, finally having a chance to catch her breath, when Bo Saixi regained her senses, she saw the scene of the Sea God's divine thought being brutally beat. Bo Saixi's faith in the Sea God in her mind began to conflict with the Qian family's partiality. Mom, you don't need to worry about it, just wait to accept your own legacy. If Gu Yuina didn't have to protect Bo Saixi, she would have wanted to go over herself and beat up this unfilial junior god that was the Sea God. You submit? Asking you if you submit. The long staff in Qian Mochen's hands had danced into afterimages, yet the Sea God's divine thought under the staff still remained silent. Good, it seems I can't keep you anymore. The long staff in Qian Mochen's hand vanished, and he beckoned to Gu Yuina. Her exclusive divine artifact, the silver dragon spear, instantly pierced through the air and landed in Qian Mochen's hand. Feeling the storm-like attacks above his head stop, the Sea God's divine thought hurriedly raised its head, looking at Qian Mochen with a face full of grief and indignation. Did you give me a chance to speak? Qian Mochen recalled it for a moment, a trace of an awkward smile appearing on his face. It seemed that he had gotten carried away in the heat of the moment and indeed hadn't given the Sea God any breathing room. Sea God, look at that woman over there. She broke through to level 99 limit Douluo before turning 100 years old. Importantly, Bo Saixi is also your devout believer. Tell me, isn't this your most perfect God position inheritor? Feeling a chill in his chest, the Sea God's divine thought lowered its head to look. Seeing the silver dragon spear that brought him a threat of death with its tip pressed against his chest, Qian Mochen's eyes were full of threats. The Sea God knew that as long as he dared to say no, this silver dragon spear would instantly pierce through his body. The Sea God's divine thought nodded blankly. Qian Mochen patted the shoulder of the Sea God's divine thought. Not bad, a wise man submits to circumstances. Relieving, hurry up and acknowledge your legacy inheritor as master. The Sea God's divine thought let out a sigh, actively grabbing a streak of golden light and fusing it with Bo Saixi's mental force. Starting from today, you are my God position inheritor. After going out, drop a drop of blood onto the Sea God's heart, and it will transform back into the vast sea cosmic shroud. Bo Saixi woke up and with a complex expression dripped a drop of fresh blood onto the Sea God's heart. Feeling the power belonging to the Sea God on Bo Saixi, the Sea God's heart proactively flew into the center of her brows. A moment later, on Bo Saixi's forehead, the divine patterns belonging to the 8 trials of red transformed into a golden trident. Feeling something, Bo Saixi summoned a water mirror and looked at the flash of gold on her forehead, a few traces of complex emotions flashing deep within her eyes. Mochen's threat actually succeeded in the end. Lord Sea God's legacy could even be designated through forced demand. Bo Saixi closed her eyes, feeling the presence of the vast sea cosmic shroud, and a trace of majesty naturally revealed itself on her body. Behind her, that trident enshrined in front of the Sea God's statue sensed Bo Saixi's change, and the trident automatically began to vibrate and hum. Bo Saixi pressed down with her palm, quiet. The vibration and hum of that trident instantly vanished. Zixi, was it successful? Qian Dailiu walked over, his gaze carrying undisguised concern. It succeeded. Bo Saixi patted Qian Dailiu's hand to put his mind at ease. Good, as long as it succeeded, that's great. Qian Dailiu, a 100-year-old elderly man, at this moment could hardly suppress the joy in his heart, smiling like a 200-jin child. Bo Saixi pacified Qian Dailiu's emotions, shifted her gaze to Qian Mochen and sincerely thanked him. Mochen, thank you. I certainly don't want my dad to just marry a wife only to be widowed a few years later. When the time comes for the final trial of the god trials, don't be anxious, I will handle it. All right. Bo Saixi's eyes trembled, understanding that Qian Mochen's understanding of the god trials was no less than her own, and she did not argue further. Whether it was the sea god or the angel god, the final god trials required the sacrifice of their high priest in order to open for the inheritor. Compared to their strength as limit Douluo, her own old man and stepmother were still very young in age, so they didn't need to rush to complete the final step. Qian Mochen was even planning to let his old man give him another younger brother to play with. Mom, I believe the people and spirit beast of Sea God Island have long been looking forward to the appearance of the Sea God legacy inheritor. Bo Saixi nodded gently. She was very clear that once her current identity revealed divine miracles again, Sea God Island would become Qian Mochen's vassal. Since even Lord Sea God himself had chosen it, of course she wouldn't refuse. After all, she was now also part of the Qian family. The moment Bo Saixi stepped out of the Sea God temple, at the foot of the mountain, the holy pillars guarded by the various holy pillar Douluo successively emitted dazzling golden light. The golden pillars of light rushed into the sky, dispersing the clouds overhead. Seahorse Douluo looked up at the strange phenomenon in the sky, and the legends passed down from generation to generation on Sea God Island surfaced in his mind. It's a top-tier god trial. The Sea God's legacy inheritor has appeared. On Sea God Island, countless sea people and spirit beast exclaimed in surprise, enthusiastically cheering that Lord Sea God's divine miracle had descended upon the island once again. It's Lord Sea God's divine miracle. Great, Lord Sea God hasn't forgotten us. Great. Unlike the excitement of the island residents after being shocked, the expressions of the several holy pillar Douluo held no joy, only a trace of heaviness. As holy pillar Douluo, they were very clear that once the true Sea God legacy inheritor appeared, their high priest Bo Saixi would become the sacrifice for the Sea God legacy inheritor to ascend the god steps. Sea Maiden and the other Douluo all coincidentally gathered at Sea Dragon Douluo's location. Chapter 92. Surprised or not, unexpected or not, when the first Sea Witch Douluo arrived, Sea Dragon Douluo did not speak, simply having the Sea Witch Douluo sit aside first. Soon, the remaining 5 pillar Douluos arrived one after another. The atmosphere beneath the holy pillars grew increasingly stagnant. Sea Dragon Douluo's gaze swept over each colleague one by one, carrying a hint of inquiry in his eyes. Today, the Sea God's legacy successor has appeared in the world. Everyone speak, who arbitrarily activated the Holy Pillar trials. I did not, is not me, big brother you know me. Every pillar Douluo claimed that they had not activated the Holy Pillar trials. Sea Dragon Douluo observed the subtle expressions of each person, a hint of confusion added to his voice. No people from outside the island have come to my place either. Could that Sea God legacy successor have simply popped out of thin air? Big brother, never mind how this person appeared. What is urgent now is how to deal with this legacy successor. Sea Horse Douluo was the first one who could no longer sit still. Indeed, Sea Dragon Douluo, the high priest, has guarded Sea God Island for 100 years. Why should she sacrifice herself for some bastard who popped up from goodness knows where? That's right. I suggest immediately mobilizing everyone on the island to find the unfamiliar faces who recently came ashore. Sea Witch, go and inquire with the Devil Spirit Great White Shark Clan to see if Zio Bai secretly let someone in. The 6 pillar Douluos chattered away with various methods, with a single purpose: to find that Sea God legacy successor and, if necessary, use some means to make him unable to complete the trials. Compared to the illusory Sea God, the High Priest was the one who had always silently given and guarded their growth. A few pillar Douluos even had a somewhat treasonous thought pop into their minds. The High Priest was more competent than the Lord Sea God they believed in. It would be better to just let the High Priest become a god instead. What are you all chatting about? A familiar voice rang out from overhead. The 7 pillar Douluos quickly stood up and respectfully saluted Bo Saixi in the sky. High Priest, Bo Saixi gave a hum of acknowledgement and slowly landed. The sharp-eyed Sea Witch immediately noticed the High Priest's change. Noticing the trace of gold on the High Priest's forehead and thinking of something, she could not help exclaiming, High Priest, you the divine trial on your forehead. Hearing this, the 6 pillar Douluos instinctively raised their heads to look at Bo Saixi's forehead. The original red 8 trial mark had turned into a golden trident. High Priest, was the anomaly just now caused by you? Even the oldest Sea Dragon Douluo had a slightly trembling voice at this moment. Meeting the gazes of the 7 pillar Douluos, Bo Saixi gently nodded. Yes, I have already become the Sea God's legacy successor. That's wonderful. Sea Witch was the first to applaud and cheer. Ha ha ha, the Lord Sea God's legacy successor has finally appeared in the world. Today, Sea God Island ought to celebrate properly. That's right, even the consistently stern sea dragon Douluo wore a smile at the corner of his mouth. With the high priest becoming the Lord Sea God's legacy successor, the seven-pillar Douluos could not be more satisfied. Bo Saixi had no intention of stopping them. She nodded with a smile, indicating that a bonfire party of mainland spirit masters could be held tonight, see which informed Xiao Bai of the news about the Sea God's legacy successor. Really? Has the Lord Sea God's legacy successor really appeared? See which nodded, a hint of playfulness in her eyes intentionally leaving the message unfinished. Xiao Bai, guess who this person who obtained the Lord Sea God's legacy is? Friendly hint, it is someone you also know. It's someone on Sea God Island. See which nodded. Xiao Bai tilted her head to think for a moment and spoke a name. Quite. Xiao Bai, guess again. Could it be one of the reserve pillar Douluos? Neither is that it. Lanyu, good sister, hurry and tell me just who became the Lord Sea God's legacy successor. Xiao Bai grew anxious, acting spoiled toward Lanyu for once, showering her with endless flattering words like they cost nothing. Lanyu enjoyed it for a moment before stopping her teasing. It is Lord Bo Saixi. The divine trial on her forehead has already turned into the Lord Sea God's trident. Xiao Bai, Lord Bo Saixi has arranged a bonfire party today, come join in the fun. As the former mount of Lord Sea God, the position of Lord Sea God in Xiao Bai's heart was even higher than that of the Lord. Learning that High Priest Bo Saixi had become the Lord Sea God's legacy successor, Xiao Bai's first reaction was disbelief. There was never a rule where the Lord Sea God's trials were open twice for the same person, let alone trials being able to be upgraded. But seeing her good sister so steadfast and the other pillar Douluos confirming it as well, Xiao Bai decided to see it with her own eyes tonight. That evening when Bo Saixi appeared, Xiao Bai's eyes glued themselves directly onto Bo Saixi, staring unblinkingly at the trident between Bo Saixi's brows for a long time. She felt a trace of Lord Sea God's faint yet extremely fresh chi upon that trident pattern. How is it, Xiao Bai? I wasn't lying to you, right? Xiao Bai gave a hum of acknowledgement, took the cup handed over by Lanyu and gulped down a large mouthful. She needed the icy cold wine to calm down. One cup was not enough, so she simply carried a barrel of wine over, sat under a tree and drank large mouthfuls. Xiao Bai, why are you staying here alone instead of going to join the lively fun with Lanyu and the others? Xiao Bai raised her head, and upon seeing the appearance of the newcomer, the drunkenness on her face instantly sobered up. Lord Qian Mochen, Lord Master. She immediately stood up to salute. Qian Mochen made a slight pressing gesture with his hand. Sit, 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 be casual today. Xiao Bai gave a hum of acknowledgement, glanced at Gu Yuina behind Qian Mochen and silently sat back down. Xiao Bai, do you have anything to do tomorrow? Xiao Bai shook her head. Xiao Bai and her clan's primary task on ordinary days was to guard the safety of Sea God Island, occasionally fighting to the death with their archenemies, the killer whales. Now that the Lord Master was staying on Sea God Island, unless those killer whales had collectively gone mad, they would not dare to approach within 100 miles of Sea God Island at all. Qian Mochen gave an acknowledging sound, speaking in a gentle tone. Since you are free, Xiao Bai, do us a favor tomorrow. That's right. Qian Mochen seemed to have only just remembered this. Could you please help me call Lanyu over? Xiao Bai gave an affirmative response, squeezed into the crowd, found Lanyu who was dancing and ignoring her struggle dragged her off to a quiet place. Xiao Bai, I was dancing so happily, why did you pull me out? A trace of unhappiness lingered on Lanyu's face. Xiao Bai did not get angry. She knew she was in the wrong, but if she didn't quickly call Lanyu over and delayed Lord Qian Mochen's business, Xiao Bai was afraid she would cry. Lord Qian Mochen is looking for you for something. Expression on Lanyu's face instantly became serious. Where is Lord Qian Mochen? Xiao Bai, go, don't let Lord wait too long. In less than a minute, Lanyu and Xiao Bai arrived before Qian Mochen. My lord, please give your orders for anything. Chapter 93. My lord, please feel free to command Moli. We plan to go out to sea for a stroll and see what local specialties we can find. Nana and I are both coming to the sea for the first time and we're not familiar with the surroundings, so we plan to ask the two of you for help. No problem. My lord, Xiao Bai and I are very familiar with the surrounding waters. Lanyu patted her chest in assurance, and the boulder hanging in her heart finally dropped safely. Fortunately, this Lord Qian Mochen did not make any outrageous requests. As for looking for sea specialties, Lanyu figured, wouldn't it just mean making other spirit beast tribes suffer a bit? This was no big deal at all. When the time comes, she would lead Lord Qian Mochen right to their doors to demand them. They dare refuse? How audacious! You lot actually refuse to even recognize the Lord. You are definitely rebels among the spirit beasts. Wipe your saliva, your drool is already flowing down. Lanyu let out an ah, and subconsciously touched the corner of her mouth, but there was nothing there. How could she possibly drool? Only after Qian Mochen and Gu Yuina left did Lanyu dare to roll her eyes at Qian Mochen's back. Having backing makes you amazing, huh? To actually slander this young lady, Xiao Bai stood nearby, laughing heartily. Early the next morning, Qian Mochen proposed the idea of letting his old man take his stepmother out to relax. Bo Saixi hesitated a little. With Xiao Bai leaving with them, if any spirit beast were to harass the believers of the sea god, she feared that relying solely on the other six-pillar Douluos might not be enough to handle it. Mom, don't worry. With Nana here, no blind spirit beast will dare approach Sea God Island during this time. Bo Saixi glanced at Gu Yuina, who had been eating quietly all along, a hint of realization flashing in her eyes. Gu Yuina had been quiet ever since she appeared, making Bo Saixi almost forget what Qian Dailiu had told her about this daughter-in-law's identity. The spirit beast sovereign. Even that nearly million-year-old deep-sea demon whale king had been slaughtered. Out here on the sea, what spirit beast would dare provoke her majesty? Zixi, come with us. Yeah, Mom, you are no longer just restricted to being the high priest. Qian Mochen helped Bo Saixi break through her previous inertia of thinking. You are now the sea god's successor. Patrolling the sea for the sea god and consolidating faith is precisely what a successor like you should do. Hearing this, Bo Saixi's eyes instantly lit up. That's right, she was no longer just the high priest of Sea God Island. She no longer needed to be trapped on the island. Bo Saixi gratefully glanced at her cheap yet good son. All right. Outside of Sea God Island, Xiao Bai led her younger brother and several clansmen to guard around a ferry. To prevent any blind spirit beasts from offending the Lord, Xiao Bai called upon all her clansmen over 30,000 years old. On the ferry, aside from the crew, over 20 eager maidservants stood obediently on the deck. Liena held a bamboo stick in her hand. Whichever maidservant didn't stand properly and darted her eyes around, she would directly reward with a whack from the stick. The maidservant let out an ouch, not daring to resist, and quickly adjusted her posture. Liena and Xiao Bai didn't wait long before 4 black dots appeared in the sky. The 4 of Qian Mochen landed on the deck, and Liena hurriedly led the maidservants behind her over. She secretly glanced at Bo Saixi on the side. Why did the high priest come out of the island too? She didn't dare ask, nor was she brave enough to be curious, so she could only mutter secretly in her heart. She wondered what kind of expression Senior Sea Dragon and the others would have if they knew the news of the high priest leaving the island. Lord Qian Mochen, these are the clansmen Liena called over from home. If you lords need anything on ordinary days, just give a shout. They all from the mermaid clan. Yes, I heard the singing of the mermaid clan is very pleasant. Mom and Dad, shall we listen together? Qian Dailiu and Bo Saixi had no objections. For this trip out to sea to save themselves the trouble, they planned to leave everything to Qian Mochen's arrangements. Liena quickly divided her clansmen into shifts. Soon ethereal and pleasant singing rang out. More than a dozen devil spirit great white sharks guarded the ferry as it headed deeper into the vast ocean. In the afternoon, several devil spirit great white sharks swaggered arrogantly into a trench. 100-meter-long tentacle poked out from the trench, churning up waves to block the devil spirit great white sharks outside. A warning voice resounded in the minds of several devil spirit great white sharks. This is my territory. Devil spirit great white sharks, if you dare take another step forward, don't blame me for not giving your clan chief any face. The eyes of these devil spirit great white sharks didn't show the slightest bit of fear as they directly talked back. How audacious, Moli. The Lord has arrived and you still dare to be so arrogant. Moli, let me tell you, the Lord has taken a fancy to the 10,000-year coral jade bone in your hands. Hurry up and present it, the Lord. Impossible, the tentacle protruding from the trench involuntarily trembled. Whether it is true or not, you can just come up and see for yourself. The tentacle quickly retracted and a 500-meter-long giant octopus crawled out from the trench. Where is the Lord? One of the great white sharks pointed at the ferry behind them. The giant octopus took a deep breath, transformed into a middle-aged man and broke through the surface of the sea. He swept his gaze across, instantly locking onto a woman on the deck who was leaning in a man's embrace. Gu Yuina glanced at him with displeasure in her eyes. Moli's body trembled and he hurriedly descended, kneeling respectfully in front of her. Moli greets the Lord. My lord, Moli has finally seen you. Back then my ancestors discovered this coral jade bone and have guarded it here ever since, waiting for the Lord to come out of seclusion. Heaven has taken pity on us and finally allowed Moli to wait for you. With an excited expression, Moli offered up a coral jade bone tree over 2 meters tall with both hands. Gu Yuina glanced at the coral jade bone for a few moments, then nodded at Moli. You've been thoughtful. Medicinal efficacy of this coral jade bone was approaching 50,000 years, comparable even to the immortal herbs around the ice and fire yin-yang well. This is all what a subordinate should do. My lord, Moli is much more familiar with the waters for thousands of miles around than these little sharks. May this subordinate lead the way for the Lord. Having received Gu Yuina's praise, Moli's voice rose high once again. The several devil spirit great white sharks that had called Moli over looked at each other in dismay. Why did it feel like they hadn't tricked this giant octopus, but instead brought themselves a powerful competitor? Xiao Bai looked at the humble-looking Moli, her eyes dazed. Moli was a 100,000-year spirit beast whose cultivation was the same as hers. If it weren't for the fact that the giant octopus's tribe consisted of only a few individuals, they could likewise dominate a region in the ocean. Xiao Bai had fought Moli several times before. Once she even bit off several of his tentacles, yet she had never seen him yield. Could the giant octopus in front of her have been subjected to possession by some weakling? Very well. Qian Mochen agreed on Gu Yuina's behalf. Gu Yuina nodded indifferently, and seeing Moli look over, she directly instructed, "This is my husband. His words represent my meaning." Hearing this, Moli's body trembled, and his gaze towards Qian Mochen instantly turned into one of admiration. A human actually managed to capture the lord. This person must definitely not be underestimated. My lord, please feel free to order Moli around. Chapter 94. Dad, congratulations on having a child. Playing with the 50,000-year-old coral jade bone, Qian Mochen was very satisfied with Moli's attitude. In the surrounding waters, which spirit beast are you most at odds with? Let's go there first. Moli's eyes instantly lit up. My lord, 800 miles to the northwest, there is a 100,000-year-old king crab. Its crab claws are extremely delicious. I imagine you and the lord will like them. All right, let's go take a look. Moli agreed, turned around, and leaped straight off the deck, transforming into its true form. Its tentacles dragged the vessel as it rapidly approached the destination. Moli's aura awakened the king crab. Before it could make a sound, Moli immediately called for helpers. Mermaid, big shark, hurry up and charge with me. The lord is still waiting to eat seafood. Moli was borrowing another's authority to intimidate, and neither Xiao Bai nor Lanyu dared to ignore it. The two of them led their clansmen to besiege the large crab together. As soon as the king crab poked its head out, it was beaten into a daze. People from Sea God Island were actually participating in a local spirit beast dispute. It flew into a rage, it resisted, it was helpless. In the end, it could only watch helplessly as Moli snapped off its 4 crab legs and happily delivered them onto the ship. After Gu Yuina showed her face for a moment, the originally furious king crab instantly subdued itself. On the deck, Qian Mochen directly turned the crab legs into various dishes. The 4 of them sat around together tasting the delicacies, feeling the sea breeze and enjoying the scenery of the sea, looking thoroughly comfortable and pleased. A month later, the ship returned to Sea God Island. The moment Bo Saixi stepped off the ship, her footsteps suddenly staggered. Her spirit power suddenly shook out of control, and her airborne body plunged downward fiercely. Qian Dailiu had been following right beside her. Sensing the situation, he hurriedly caught Bo Saixi and looked at her with a face full of worry. "Zixi, what happened?" Bo Saixi slowly shook her head. At this moment, she carefully felt her own body. Her spirit power was as obedient as her own arms and fingers, as if the confusion from just a moment ago was merely her illusion. "I am not sure either." "Machen, come quickly and check on Zixi." Qian Dailiu checked with his own spirit power for a long time but still couldn't figure out the situation. With no other choice in the end, he directly called out his good son's name. Hearing this, Qian Machen rushed over. After asking clearly about the situation, he did not use spirit power but simply reached out his hand. His fingers rested on Bo Saixi's wrist, carefully feeling her pulse. "Mom, give me your right hand." After feeling the pulse repeatedly a few times, Qian Machen's expression turned solemn as he began to ponder. Feeling that the atmosphere around them had grown somewhat stagnant, Qian Dailiu paced back and forth and ultimately couldn't hold it in, asking directly, "What on earth is wrong with your mom? Tell me the truth so she and I can be prepared." Bo Saixi held Qian Dailiu's hand, squeezed it gently, and shook her head slightly. Gazing into Bo Saixi's calm eyes, the impatience in Qian Dailiu's heart suddenly found an outlet. He let out a long breath and sat down next to Bo Saixi. Just like a prisoner waiting for sentencing on the night before execution, no matter when that blade fell, he would no longer feel a shred of fear. "Dad, Mom's condition is very complicated." Qian Machen spoke, his heavy voice causing Qian Dailiu's heart to sink continuously. "Impossible," he glanced at Bo Saixi and subconsciously retorted. "Zixi is a limit Douluo and her cultivation is paramount. How could this be? Everything I said is true. Dad, you must mentally prepare yourself." Feeling the softness in his palm, Qian Dailiu spoke after a long while. "Tell me honestly, how much time does Zixi have left?" A flash of determination crossed Qian Dailiu's eyes. Even if he had to exhaust his entire life, he would extend Zixi's life. He and Zixi had just got together. He would not let go. Qian Machen looked at Qian Dailiu with a strange expression. "Dad, what are you talking about? Mom's body is doing great." "You brat, then what was the meaning of that look you had just now?" Qian Dailiu was stunned and immediately felt his hand itching. Someone probably hadn't felt paternal love in a long time. Qian Machen reached out his hands innocently. "I didn't say anything, haha." "Stop beating around the bush. What on earth is going on with Zixi's body?" Qian Machen smiled brightly, tossing out a sentence swiftly. "Dad, congratulations on having a child." After finishing, Qian Machen grabbed Gu Yuina and ran. Hee, running away right after teasing. How thrilling. Qian Dailiu completely failed to notice Qian Machen sneaking away, his whole mind and heart completely immersed in Qian Machen's previous sentence. "I'm going to have a child. Zixi and I are going to have a child." After recovering his wits, Qian Dailiu immediately turned his head to ask Bo Saixi. "Zixi, what our brat just said. Is it true?" Bo Saixi chuckled softly and nodded slowly, one hand stroking her belly. Machen said there is our child inside my belly. Hahaha, that's wonderful. Qian Dailiu scooped Bo Sexy up in his arms and laughed heartily. Fortunately, he still remembered in the end that his wife was now pregnant with child and shouldn't move around too roughly. He only tightly embraced Bo Sexy, letting her feel his joy and excitement. Bo Sexy also quietly rested on Qian Dailiu's shoulder, feeling the child inside her belly who hadn't even formed an embryo yet. With Qian Machen's reminder, Bo Sexy directly felt the vigorously growing child within her abdomen. Her brows and eyes softened, and a trace of maternal radiance slowly emanated from her. Qian Dailiu and Bo Sexy returned to see God Temple, where Qian Machen was simmering a pot of soup filled with medicinal aromas. Upon seeing the brat, Qian Dailiu instantly recalled the scene earlier on the beach where the unfilial son had played tricks on him. The palms under his sleeves clenched quietly and he planned to sneak up behind Qian Machen. Seeming to sense something, Qian Machen turned back and pointed at the boiling soup in the pot. "Dad, this is a nutritious soup I specially brewed for Mom. You guys came back just in time." Qian Machen blinked at Qian Dailiu, deliberately emphasizing his tone in the first half of the sentence. "Dad, you wouldn't want my future younger brother or sister to fall behind at the starting line, right?" Qian Dailiu snorted and shot a glare filled with eye knives over. "Brat, you just wait for me. The old man is writing this account down for you." Qian Machen directly ignored the impotently furious old codger, scooped a bowl of soup and used spirit power to lower its temperature to lukewarm. Then he trotted over to Bo Sexy's side, ingratiatingly saying, "Mom, hurry and try it. This soup has to be drunk while it's hot for the best effect." Bo Sexy smiled and nodded, taking the chicken soup and sipping it in small mouthfuls. Not knowing if it was an illusion, she seemed to genuinely feel that the child's growth rate had sped up by a fraction. "Mom, how does the soup taste?" "Delicious. Mom, the ingredients on the island are still too few. After some time, when we return to Spirit City, you can rest assured and recuperate there." Hearing this, Qian Dailiu also looked over with a face full of anticipation. Bo Sexy did not answer, her eyes carrying a bit of hesitation. "Mom, you are no longer the high priestess now, you are a proper sea god legacy bearer. Childbirth is a woman's most crucial step. In order not to let Lord Sea God's legacy be lost, you must and certainly must protect your own body." Zixi, what Machen says makes sense. Chapter 95, Arrival of the Soul from a Different World. Bo Sexy frowned and thought for a long time. The responsibilities of being a high priestess for nearly 100 years and a mother pulled her in opposite directions. Just as she was about to prevaricate and say that she could raise the child well on Sea God Island, the child in her womb suddenly transmitted the first heartbeat. Bo Sexy's words got stuck in her throat all of a sudden, her palms carefully pressed against her belly, carefully feeling that weak yet powerful heartbeat. "Baby, you are also supporting mommy, aren't you?" Bo Sexy silently asked in her heart, and that weak heartbeat beat evenly, seemingly responding to something. After a long while, Bo Sexy raised her head. "Qian Dailiu, I will go back with you. After the child is born, I want to take her back to live on Sea God Island and return to Spirit Hall after he reaches adulthood." "Well, I agree with everything you say." Qian Machen didn't make a sound. Now Bo Sexy insisted on bringing the child back. Once she saw how his nieces and nephews were nurtured, she wouldn't be willing to bring the child back. At that time, he would let Yin and the others persuade her together, and Bo Sexy would presumably stay. 2 months later, the fleet set sail. Sea Dragon Douluo and several others came specifically to the seaside to bid Bo Sexy farewell. "High Priestess, you must come back early." "That's right, High Priestess, this is your home, come back and visit more often." Bo Sexy hummed in acknowledgement and nodded gently. Before stepping onto the gunwale, she turned back and gazed for a long time at the land behind her. The fleet set sail and drifted on the sea for half a month. The dock had long since received Qian Machen's letter and prepared several carriages early, heading all the way to Spirit City. Qian Machen led Qian Dailiu and Bo Sexy toward a brand new small courtyard at the edge of the city. This courtyard was more than 200 meters away from his and his eldest brother's homes, making it very convenient to visit either place. The courtyard gate opened, and the yearning gazes of Bibi Dong and Yin instantly fell on Qian Machen. "Dad, Mom, welcome home." Qian Xunji led his wife and children to bow and salute Qian Dailiu and Bo Sexy. Good, 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 all of you get up." Qian Dailiu glanced at all his grandsons and granddaughters. The little infants all looked happily at this unfamiliar old man without any sign of shyness or fear. After the Qian family finished their lively reunion dinner, Qian Dailiu's courtyard returned to quietness. As soon as Qian Machen returned home, Bibi Dong and Yin could no longer suppress the longing in their hearts and pounced on him. Qian Machen caught one in each hand, hugged them into his arms and gently patted their backs. "Donger, Yin, you've both had a hard time during my absence." Bibi Dong blinked hard, not wanting her tears to fall. "You left for so long all at once, I want you to compensate me and Yin. All right, from now on I won't go out, I will stay at home and accompany you all the time." In the following days, Qian Mochen stayed at home as he promised, accompanying Bibi Dong as they awaited the birth of their firstborn. 4 months later, a little baby girl wailed as she landed on the ground. Bibi Dong supported her weary body and carefully embraced the little baby girl into her arms. Baby mommy has finally waited for your birth. Little baby girl unconsciously rubbed against Bibi Dong's face, smacked her lips a few times and quickly fell asleep. The next summer, Bo Saixi gave birth to a little girl. Raising the little girl to 1 year old and seeing how the Qian family nurtured their children, Bo Saixi chose to stay in Spirit City without the slightest hesitation. Her child deserved the best of everything. Over the next few years, good news continuously came from the Qian family. When Bibi Dong's child, Qian Renxue, was 5 years old, Yin and Gu Yuina became pregnant at the same time. In the same year, Yin and Gu Yuina together gave birth to a boy for Qian Mochen. At the same time, thousands of miles away at the Clear Sky sect, Yin's clanswoman Alan also came out of the delivery room. Tang Hao carefully held the child in his arms, walked to Alan's side and said affectionately, "Alan, you've had a hard time. Take a look at our son. He has a head of beautiful blue hair just like you. His eyes look just like yours." The infant being held by Tang Hao at this moment blinked his eyes and tried hard to look at the woman before him who gave him a sense of closeness. "Is this my mother? In this lifetime I Tang San am finally no longer an orphan." Tang San tried hard to extend his fingers to wrap around Alan's finger. Detecting a familiar, warm aura, he closed his eyes contentedly and fell into a deep sleep. "Alan, I plan to name the child Little San. What do you think?" Hao, I'll listen to whatever you say." As Tang Hao gently embraced Alan, enjoying the happiness of this moment, a message was quickly transmitted out from the Clear Sky sect kitchen. The next day, 5-year-old Qian Renxue was pestering Qian Mochen to accompany her in her training. "Daddy, accompany me for a little training. Please, all right. Qian Mochen raised his hands in surrender. Facing a mini-sized Bibi Dong acting spoiled towards him, he truly couldn't handle it. Daddy, let's hurry up and go. Otherwise the training ground will be taken by little Aunt again in a moment." Qian Renxue dragged Qian Mochen and ran quickly toward the training ground. After accompanying Qian Renxue in training for 2 hours, Qian Mochen received a message transmission from the Clear Sky sect. Opening it to take a look, the words inside made his eyes turn profound. "Alan gave birth to a boy yesterday and Tang Hao named him Tang San. God King Tang was born and the plot of Douluo Continent was about to officially begin." Remembering that he still had an unresolved debt outside, Qian Mochen immediately ordered, "Go and check if this generation's children of the Zhu family in the Stardew Empire have been born." Small figure noticed Qian Mochen deep in thought, and she gestured a few times to Qian Renxue opposite her, telling her not to make a sound. Then this figure tiptoed, hitting Qian Mochen's blind spot and leaped down from the tree, slamming toward Qian Mochen like a cannonball. Sensing the attack from behind, Qian Mochen skillfully stepped to one side, avoiding the assault. The attacker looked at the rapidly enlarging ground, covering her mouth and letting out a big shout. "Brother! Quickly save Kair!" A hand reached out from behind Kair, just in time to scoop the little girl up and dissipate the impact force on her body. By the way, Qian Mochen weighed the little girl who was covering her face and didn't dare look at the result, tapping her glabella with his finger. "Isn't our holy maiden, your highness, very formidable? How can she still be afraid of pain?" Hearing her brother's voice, Kair lowered her hands with a grin, naturally wrapped her arms around Qian Mochen's neck and rubbed her small face against him. Brother, I just wanted to find you to play." "Little Aunt, look, I told you that you definitely couldn't launch a sneak attack on Daddy." Qian Renxue, who had run over, made sarcastic remarks from the side. Kair snorted, gestured at the height difference between herself and Qian Mochen, and her tone became confident. "When I grow as tall as brother, I will definitely be able to beat brother, right?" "Yes, Kair needs to cultivate hard, and in the future brother will wait for Kair to protect him." "Problem." Kair patted her chest, looking very happy. Qian Mochen picked up Qian Renxue as well, leading the 2 chattering little girls as they walked back. It was time to find child brides for the 2 stinky boys at home. Chapter 96, I'm here to pick up my child bride, your highness. There are a total of 4 people in this generation of the Hell Civet from the Zhu family. The 4 sisters Zhu Jian, Zhu Zhuqing, Zhu Zhuxia and Zhu Zhufeng. The oldest just turned 1 year old today and the youngest child was born only 2 months ago. "Mochen, what are you looking at so intently?" Gu Yuina walked over holding a child. Qian Mochen spread out the 4 portraits in his hand. "Nana, take a look. If there's any child you like, we'll bring her over to be a child bride for our sons. Yin, you come take a look too." Gu Yuina and Yin crowded in front of the table and carefully examined the portraits. Every girl on them was carved from jade and looked very cute, and neither of them knew which one to choose. "Yuibai Linger, come, pick for yourselves. Whichever girl you like, Daddy will bring her back." Qian Mochen had a flash of inspiration and brought the portraits in his hand in front of his 2 sons who were still nursing. The 2 little guys let out meaningless ah-ah sounds from their mouths and their arms waved with vigor. "What do Yuibai and Linger understand? You're just fooling them." Gu Yuina gave Qian Mochen a sidelong glance. Whose family chooses a child bride by letting nursing bobbies pick? Our children are naturally no ordinary people. Besides, aren't sons born just to be played with? Didn't you have a lot of fun playing last time too? Qian Mochen teased with a wink. Gu Yuina's face blushed for once and she glared fiercely at him, saying no more. Ah Yin, what do you think? These 4 children are all very pretty, I can't choose, so let you by pick. Qian Mochen made the 4 portraits float in the air and brought them close to his sons, moving the portraits closer to them one by one. The 2 little guys seemed to think their daddy was playing a game with them, laughing happily, their little hands lifting up, wanting to grab the portraits. Very quickly there was a result. Linger grabbed Zhu Jian's portrait and Yubai chose Zhu Zhuking. Good sons, great taste. I'll go bring your wives back right now. Mochen, are you going personally? Come back early so the little brats can build more affection with their wives. Looking forward to holding my grandchildren. Ah Yin couldn't help but pinch Qian Mochen. Seriously, this guy is getting more and more outrageous. The kids are still nursing and he's already thinking about holding grandchildren. Qian Mochen deliberately feigned pain and fell backward. A trace of anxiety appeared on Ah Yin's face, and as she just took a step toward Qian Mochen, an extra hand appeared on her waist. Ah Yin's subsequent words were completely blocked off. 2 hours later, Qian Mochen walked out of the room feeling refreshed. He summoned his spirit, and with a flap of the wings behind him, he turned into a shooting star and rapidly flew toward the Star Luo Empire. Half an hour later, Qian Mochen landed inside the Zhu family's estate, revealing a trace of a titled Douluo's coercion. Very quickly, the person in charge of the Zhu family hurried over with a solemn expression. Your Highness, titled Douluo, I wonder what brings you to our Zhu family. Qian Mochen pulled out an IOU from some time ago. I had a gambling agreement with the Emperor of the Star Luo Empire back then, and now I'm here to collect the debt. Person in charge of the Zhu family took the IOU, his gaze narrowing. To think it required the Zhu family to send out 2 daughters. Back then, when their empress suddenly returned to the Zhu family, he had rejoiced for a while. During their conversation at that time, the empress had specifically mentioned hopping to give birth to a few more girls this generation. The person in charge of the Zhu family had thought the number of princes in the Dai family had increased, but it turned out it was used as compensation. Sensing the faint killing intent on the person in charge of the Zhu family, Qian Mochen let out a N, and the coercion on his body instantly increased significantly. The person in charge of the Zhu family dropped to his knees with a thud, feeling as if a mountain was pressing down on his body. He couldn't even move a single finger and panic surged in his heart. He hadn't expected that with his spirit Douluo cultivation, he wouldn't even have a shred of ability to resist in front of this person. Today I am here to pick up my 2 daughters-in-law, so it is not suitable to see blood. Use your little thoughts to challenge my patience. Qian Mochen finished speaking and withdrew his coercion. The person in charge of the Zhu family lay on the ground, panting heavily, his clothes long since soaked in cold sweat. He barely managed to support himself to stand up and bowed to Qian Mochen. Thank you for showing mercy, my lord. I wonder which child of our Zhu family the lord has taken a fancy to. Zhu Jian and Zhu Zhuking. Person in charge of the Zhu family immediately ordered someone to bring these 2 children over. Your Highness, Jian just ate and fell asleep. Inside the storage ring are the bedding, toys, and favorite foods that Jian and Zhuking usually use. Well, for the sake of these, your disrespect will be overlooked. Qian Mochen carefully picked up one in each hand, spreading his dozens of meters-long wings behind him, and abruptly soared into the sky with the children. In less than an hour, he had already returned to his small courtyard. Ah, are these Jian and Zhuking? So cute! They are so well-behaved, even when they're so small. They will definitely be top-tier beauties when they grow up. Learning that Qian Mochen had brought back 2 little girls, and that these 2 children would also be his son's child brides in the future, more than 20 people from the Qian family all ran over to watch the commotion. Brother, let me take a look at my nephew's wives. Second uncle, we want to see our little sisters too. Daddy, such a cute little girl, let me hold her. Qian Mochen was surrounded by a bunch of chattering voices, countless sound waves seemingly echoing endlessly in his head. He couldn't take it anymore, quickly squeezed out of the crowd, handed the children into the hands of Gu Yuina and Ah Yin, and flashed away. As soon as the children saw the 2 little girls fall into the hands of Gu Yuina and Ah Yin, they immediately wanted to swarm forward. With just a glance from Gu Yuina, Kair, who was running the fastest, immediately stopped, stood honestly 2 steps away, and flashed a flattering smile toward Gu Yuina. Sister-in-law, I just wanted to see my nephew's wives. Looking is fine, just don't keep asking questions. If you wake the children up and they cry later, I'll make you coax them. Problem, Kair readily agreed. In front of this sister-in-law Gu Yuina, she didn't dare to act out at all. She turned around and admonished the group of little ones behind her. Did you hear that? Keep your mouths shut later. Whoever wakes the children up can go talk to my fists. A group of children ranging from 2 to 6 years old obediently covered their mouths with their palms and nodded seriously. From the time Kair could walk, she became the child king among this group of children in the Qian family. The group of children couldn't beat her in a fight, and seniority-wise she was of the same generation as their parents. Even if they went to complain to their grandparents, most of the time it would be fine once this little ant acted spoiled. But afterwards, the little ant would treat them to a good serving of palm stir-fried bottom. After Zhu Jian woke up, because of the unfamiliar environment, she started crying and asking for her mom. Fortunately, Gu Yuina and Yin coaxed her gently and took out all kinds of interesting toys. So the little girl quickly forgot about looking for her mom and settled down peacefully in the small courtyard. Time flew by in a flash, and 6 years had passed before they knew it. Inside the Supreme Pontiff Palace, Bibi Dong wore a veil and sat on the Supreme Pontiff seat, handling various affairs. 4 years ago, Qian Mochen announced that he was going into seclusion while stepping down from the position of Supreme Pontiff, prompting Bibi Dong to directly step up to the role. As 4 years passed, the oppressive aura of a superior emanating from her grew heavier and heavier. Everyone who came to the Supreme Pontiff Palace to report was filled with apprehension, terrified that this Supreme Pontiff would find fault and strip them of their positions entirely. The doors of the Supreme Pontiff Palace were suddenly pushed open, followed closely by an anxious call. "Mom," Bibi Dong glanced at the hurried young girl and asked, "What is it?" "Mom, hurry up. Today is the Spirit Awakening Day for our younger brothers and sisters, did you forget?" Qian Renxue ran over, pulling Bibi Dong outward as she spoke. Bibi Dong glanced at the time. "Isn't there still an hour left?" Such a big matter, how can we not go early?" Bibi Dong glanced at the mountain of paperwork on the table and sighed helplessly. This girl of hers was good in every way, except that her temper was a bit too impatient. When Bibi Dong arrived at the elder hall, true to expectation, there was no one there except for Qian Dailiu and his wife. Half an hour later, Gu Yuina and Yin arrived with 4 children. Grandpa, Mom, Bibi Dong, Sister Zuer. The 4 children greeted them obediently. Qian Dailiu smiled, nodded, and beckoned to the children. Qian Ling, Qian Yubai, and Zhu Zhuqing walked over together. "Now Grandpa will perform the Spirit Awakening ceremony for you. Next, starting with Qian Ling, place your palm on the ball. No matter what happens, do not let go, understand?" Qian Ling understands. Qian Ling placed his palm on the crystal ball, and soon a force within his body was drawn out by the crystal ball. A mighty and domineering little dragon appeared on his palm. The surface of the crystal ball suddenly lit up, as if a sun had appeared in Qian Ling's hand. Qian Dailiu's line of sight was completely unobstructed as he gazed at the blindingly bright crystal ball, shouting out words of approval several times in a row. "Qian Ling, you have awakened a top-tier beast spirit, Silver Dragon King, with innate spirit power at level 20. Grandpa will accompany you to hunt for a suitable spirit ring in a moment." Qian Ling let out an acknowledgement, opened his right hand, and spoke with a hint of confusion in his voice. "But Grandpa, I feel the same sensation in my right hand as well." Qian Dailiu lowered his head to look, and a holy seraphim, which he was extremely familiar with, appeared in the center of Qian Ling's palm. "Haha, it is actually twin spirits. Good, good. Ask your mother later which spirit to cultivate first. Remember, before the spirit rings of the first spirit are full, you must never attach a spirit ring to the second spirit." "Understood, Grandpa." Qian Dailiu shifted his gaze to Zhu Zhuqing and beckoned to the somewhat shy little girl. "Zhuqing, come, you go first." Zhu Zhuqing responded with an acknowledgement and placed her palm on the crystal ball. A moment later, a soft cat meow sounded, and a nimble hell civet appeared on her palm. "Innate spirit power at level 13, very good. Thank you, Grandpa." The last one was Qian Yubai's turn. He had also inherited Yin's Blue Silver Emperor and Qian Mochen's Holy Seraphim Spirit, with his innate spirit power also at level 20. At this moment, Qian Dailiu just wanted to look up to the sky and laugh loudly. He never expected that among his grandchildren, several were geniuses with level 20 innate spirit power, and 2 of his grandsons even possessed twin spirits. With such talent, who among his old brothers could compare to him? Qian Dailiu planned to find spirit rings for his grandchildren, and then immediately go look for Golden Crocodile and his other old brothers to catch up. At that time, he would inadvertently steer the topic towards his grandchildren. "Oh, how did you know that every single one of my grandchildren is a genius?" Yeah, it's just a bit more than the innate level 10 spirit power. You can catch up quickly if you work harder later." Imagining the scene that would follow, Qian Dailiu's heart could hardly wait. "Children, come over, Grandpa will take you to find spirit rings." Qian Dailiu beckoned, and 7 or 8 children all stepped forward. The children of the Qian family had started consuming heaven and earth treasures like whale gum since childhood, and everyone's spirit rings already far exceeded the so-called maximum age limits outside. What troubled Qian Dailiu was where to find spirit beasts of the appropriate age. Just as they were about to leave the Elder Hall, an explosion suddenly sounded from somewhere in the back mountain. Immediately afterwards, a pillar of light several meters in diameter erupted from the back mountain, soaring straight into the clouds. At some point, pitch-black tribulation clouds appeared in the sky with streams of purple lightning circulating within them. Qian Dailiu glanced at it, and even just the lightning within the tribulation clouds made him feel a trace of palpitations. "Dad, what happened?" Qian Xunji sensed the anomaly here and hurried over. Now not only the back mountain, but people throughout the entire spirit city saw that pillar of light connecting heaven and earth, and everyone was discussing it animatedly. If they hadn't seen that the location of the pillar of light was near the Elder Hall, the people in Spirit Hall would have lost their patience long ago. Not long after Qian Xunji arrived, Golden Crocodile and several other elders quickly hurried over. Eldest brother, what happened? Qian Dailiu observed for a long time before speaking. It should be the commotion caused by Machen. Qian Dailiu felt the increasingly oppressive coercion of the tribulation clouds around him and turned his gaze behind him. Nana, take the children back first. Gu Yuina let out an acknowledgement, and seeing that Bibi Dong was about to speak, she shot her a look, calling out to Yin and Bibi Dong to send the children back together first. As soon as they returned to the small courtyard and sent the children back to their rooms, Bibi Dong couldn't hold back her words any longer. Sister, will Machen be all right? Merely the aura emanating from that tribulation cloud made Bibi Dong feel palpitations. She was already a level 96 super Douluo, and even she felt palpitations, so the power of the tribulation cloud could be imagined. Furthermore, she could still see that the tribulation cloud in the sky was continuously expanding. Yin also cast a look of concern. Yuina walked to the window, gazing into the distance at the tribulation clouds in the sky, and spoke only after a long while. I also don't know if Machen will be all right. Yuina pointed her finger at the tribulation clouds in the sky. This is the lightning tribulation that anyone attempting to reach the 100th level and become a god must go through. Machen hasn't appeared these past few years, and I don't know what level his cultivation has actually reached. Bibi Dong was somewhat puzzled. Sister, wasn't it said that only when spirit beasts become gods will they face the lightning tribulation? How come Machen? Normal godhood creation in the Douluo Continent involves finding the legacy of a divinity and directly inheriting that god's god position after reaching level 99. Machen has not obtained the legacy of any god over these years. Gu Yuina's voice carried a hint of solemnity. I guess that Machen intends to forcefully breach the 100th level threshold directly, ascending to the 100 level realm without relying on a god position. Then won't Machen be in danger? Yin's worried words blurted out. Chapter 98. Today I insist on defying this rule. Gu Yuina shook her head gently. She glanced at the room behind her, her gaze passing through the door as if she could see a few little ones clinging to it, pricking up their ears to eavesdrop on the conversation between their mothers. I do not know. When Machen comes out of seclusion, I will accompany him to leave this place and find a lifeless place for undergoing tribulation. If Gu Yuina paused suddenly, looking earnestly at Bibi Dong and Yin, if Machen and I do not return, do not tell Linger anything about the spirit beasts. Bibi Dong and Yin acknowledged with a hum, nodding heavily. Hearing the lack of confidence in Gu Yuina's words, the gazes that Bibi Dong and Yin cast toward the back mountain were tinged with some worry. If even Gu Yuina could not help Machen, their cultivation would only make them a burden if they went. A moment later, the pillar of light connecting heaven and earth in the back mountain receded, revealing Qian Mochen sitting cross-legged inside. He opened his eyes, feeling his own strength. A few years ago, his emotion points had accumulated enough, and Qian Mochen immediately purchased the opportunity for a breakthrough to level 100. After 4 years of bitter cultivation, his power had now crossed the threshold of level 100. Rumble, the thunder resounding overhead seemed not to think so. To reach level 100 without relying on a god position and instead forcibly becoming a god through sheer power, in the rules of Douluo Continent, someone like Qian Mochen was an existence that must be destroyed. If everyone could break through to level 100 without a god position, how could the gods of the god realm sit securely in the god realm, overlooking the rise and fall of all living beings, and break their heads over a god position they had discarded and abandoned? The rules woven by gods. Qian Mochen let out a cold sneer, and the instant he stood up, a piercing battle intent soared from his body into the air. Today I insist on defying this rule. He soared into the air, rapidly flying towards the outside of Spirit City. The increasingly massive tribulation clouds followed closely behind. Seeing Qian Mochen leave, Gu Yuina and Qian Dailiu followed closely behind at the same time. Soon Qian Mochen found a suitable place for undergoing tribulation. Within a radius of 1,000 miles there were only precipitous mountains. The mountains were steep, without even a trace of life aura. He stood on the peak of the mountain, his gaze shifting from the tribulation clouds overhead to the 2 black dots on the left. His powerful eyesight allowed him to see clearly who the arrivals were. A sound transmission flew into the ears of Gu Yuina and Qian Dailiu. Nana, Dad, do not worry. These tribulation clouds can do nothing to me. Nana, this is the 3rd god-becoming method I have researched, just watch. Tribulation clouds in the sky had already covered a radius of 1,000 miles. When the power of the lightning tribulation accumulated to its maximum, a purple thunderbolt crashed down suddenly. Qian Mochen did not summon his spirit, only condensing a long flaming sword, slashing out a 1,000-meter sword beam that collided with the thunderbolt. With a loud rumble, at the position where the sword beam and thunderbolt collided, it was as if an extra sun had appeared, its dazzling light illuminating the 1,000-mile earth. The sword beam was continuously shattered in the thunderbolt, and finally only 1/5 of the thunderbolt shrank down to fall. Qian Mochen did not dodge, directly using his physical body to hard resist the thunderbolt. Feeling the thunderbolt run rampant on his body, a thought flickered in his mind and a ball of flames enveloped his body, completely dispersing the thunderbolt. Weighing the power of the thunderbolt, Qian Mochen knew what to expect. His accumulation over more than 4 years was not for nothing. If every subsequent lightning tribulation had this level of power, then let's see how he would tear apart the rule that one could not become a god without a god position. The second and third thunderbolts fell successively. Qian Mochen slashed out a few sword beams, easily destroying the thunderbolts. "Hey, is this really all the power you have?" Qian Mochen's remarks seemed to anger the tribulation clouds. The tribulation clouds that originally blotted out the sky began to quickly recede. Soon the fourth thunderbolt fell. The light purple thunderbolt was completely dyed with a deep purple this time. That is the destruction tribulation. Seeing this thunderbolt, Liena, who was watching from the sidelines, subconsciously blurted out an exclamation. "Nana, what is the destruction tribulation?" Liena forcibly suppressed her anxiety and explained, "Dad, the destruction tribulation only descends in the god realm when one breakthroughs to the god-king realm." Isn't Machen still not at level 100? Perhaps it is because he forcibly breakthroughs that he attracted this kind of lightning tribulation. Liena's eyes were entirely focused on Qian Mochen. As long as he encountered danger, she would discard this entire cultivation and rescue Mochen no matter what. Sensing the dangerous aura within this destruction tribulation, Qian Mochen laughed heartily. "This is more like it." Behind him, a holy seraphim spirit quietly appeared. The seraphim rapidly melted, transforming into a golden longsword in Qian Mochen's hand. The moment he grasped the longsword, Qian Mochen's aura instantly soared by several folds. "Break for me." An ordinary-looking sword beam was slashed out. Compared to the destruction tribulation lightning that made thousands of spirit beasts tremble with fear, the sword beam was far too plain. However, the moment such an ordinary sword beam flew out, countless fine black cracks appeared in the air. The sword beam directly cut open the spatial barrier, meeting the lightning carrying a destructive aura. There was no sound at all. The destructive lightning slowly disappeared as if it lacked follow-up strength. The moment the remaining half of the sword beam flew into the tribulation clouds began to churn violently, and deafening thunderous sounds continuously resounded through heaven and earth. After a long while, the lightning tribulation recovered, but its volume was 1/3 less than before. The fifth thunderbolt fell. Qian Mochen did not wait in place. Instead, he flew straight up into the sky, rushing forward to meet the thunderbolt. With a single sword strike, he split the thunderbolt in half, and without abating his momentum, he rushed straight into the lightning tribulation. The lights of the sword beam and the thunderbolt flashed. Even Liena and Qian Daolu outside the lightning tribulation could clearly perceive the furious emotion of the tribulation clouds. "Nana. Could it be that undergoing tribulation has to be like Mochen's?" Liena shook her head, a dazed emotion appearing in her eyes for the first time. She no longer knew what Mochen was trying to do. The tribulation clouds in the sky seemed to be completely angered by Qian Mochen's actions. A power of rules appeared, and the originally deep purple thunderbolt took on a hint of black. The moment the power of rules appeared, Qian Mochen's gaze quickly locked onto it, the sharp light in his eyes surging drastically. "This is precisely what I have been waiting for." Ignoring the thunderbolt, whose dangerous aura had increased several-fold around him, Qian Mochen had the 9 spirit rings behind him merge into the longsword in his hand one by one. His entire body's spirit power was also poured into the longsword without reservation, to the point that even his hands could not steadily hold the longsword anymore. Slash! Qian Mochen forcibly swung his sword, and a sword beam instantly sliced open the countless black thunderbolts rushing toward him, landing on that fleeting power of rules. With a crisp crack, a crack split open on the formless power of rules. The injured power of rules did not dare to delay, directly abandoning the section that was stuck by the sword beam. Under the control of the power of rules, the tribulation clouds actively flew toward the sword beam, like moths flying into a flame, solely to buy a trace of space for the power of rules. Under the sacrifice of countless tribulation clouds, the power of rules finally grasped that trace of space and instantly escaped from this place. A spatial crack of 100 miles appeared in the air, slowly healing under the world's self-repair. Mochen, Chapter 99, the shackles of restriction have lightened. Qian Mochen looked at the escaping power of rules and chuckled softly. "You run pretty fast." The long sword in his hand vanished, and an unprecedented wave of weakness surged from his body. He coughed a few times and spat out several mouthfuls of blood. With his last shred of spirit power exhausted, his entire body plummeted directly from high altitude. "Mochen!" Liena exclaimed in alarm, instantly turning into a streak of light as she rushed over to catch Qian Mochen. The moment she embraced him, Liena sensed something was wrong. Her hands were wet. Looking down, she saw that Qian Mochen's chest had long been soaked with fresh blood, his body was covered in wounds, and even his heartbeat had grown faint. A streak of healing holy light descended, followed immediately by Qian Dailiu's voice. Nana, treat Machen's wounds first. I will protect his body, Gu Yuina acknowledged, pulled out several large bottles of medicinal pills, poured them all down Qian Machen's throat, and continuously catalyzed the medicinal power with her spirit power. 2 hours later, Qian Machen's heartbeat stabilized, and a trace of color returned to his pale face. The gruesome wounds on his body had already healed under Qian Dailiu's holy light. Qian Dailiu wiped the sweat from his forehead and let out a long sigh of relief. All right, take him back to recuperate properly. There are still some 10,000-year ginsengs at home, take them to nourish the brat. After his worry subsided, a surge of anger welled up in Qian Dailiu's heart. This brat was acting recklessly again. If he and Gu Yuina hadn't been following this time, the brat probably would have been in grave danger with little hope of survival. Glancing at Qian Machen's weak appearance, Qian Dailiu thought silently in his heart, "Brat, when your injuries recover, see how I beat you up." When Gu Yuina brought Qian Machen back, a group of people hurriedly crowded around. "Sister, is Machen, is he all right? Mom, what happened to Dad?" Gu Yuina gently pressed her palm down, signaling everyone to be quiet. "Rest assured, he just fainted from overexertion. He'll be fine after sleeping for a few days." Gu Yuina gave Bibi Dong and Yin a look, and the two immediately pacified the children. Once only the few of them were left in the room, Gu Yuina revealed the truth. Bibi Dong's eyes instantly turned red, and Yin wiped her eyes, shedding tears in secret. What a fool, exactly does he not want his life anymore? After crying, Yin still felt deeply distressed for him. 9 spirit rings emerged, and a massive amount of vitality surged into Qian Machen's body. When her perception probed into Qian Machen's body, she finally realized just how weak his current breath of life truly was. The vitality that was enough to burst a tidal Douluo seemed like nothing more than a small puddle inside Qian Machen's body, utterly incapable of filling that boundless ocean-like void. "Sister Donger, help me conceal the anomaly in the room." Gu Yuina and Bibi Dong joined forces to set up a barrier. Gu Yuina stayed in the room just in case, while Bibi Dong went out to steady the children. Yin's 7th spirit ring shone brightly, and the next moment a blue-silver emperor true body manifested. As her 9th spirit ring activated, Yin spat out a few words. "Blue-silver domain, expand." A vibrant blue domain rapidly expanded outward with Yin at its center, 100 meters, 1,000 meters. It kept expanding until it reached 20 kilometers before the domain stopped. Within a radius of 20 kilometers, hundreds of millions of blue-silver grass at this moment heard the pleading voice of their sole emperor. "My subjects, I need your help right now. Please lend some origin of life to me." Stalk after stalk of blue-silver grass swayed their leaves, and specks of glowing origin of life flew out from their main bodies. These blue-silver grass, which could not speak and did not possess even the slightest trace of consciousness, responded to Yin with their own actions. Hundreds of millions of light specks converged into a majestic surging river, continuously flowing into Qian Machen's body. Yin's forehead quietly broke out in cold sweat, her eyes filled with a trace of anxiety. "How come Machen still hasn't woken up?" "Yin, extract 1/5 of my vitality." Seeing that this river of life was about to break, Gu Yuina walked over to Yin's side and directly stated her plan. "Wasting words, extract it quickly. If we delay any longer, everything you and your subjects have done will be in vain." At this moment, Qian Machen's consciousness was in a place of dark chaos. He was aimlessly searching for an exit in this boundless place that didn't even have any direction. The voices of Gu Yuina and Yin slowly drifted over. Their voices were very hazy, as if they were separated from him by a very, very long distance. Qian Machen heard that Gu Yuina and Yin were going to consume their own origin to save him. How could he let that happen? Wake up for me." Qian Machen let out bursts of angry roars in the darkness, his powerful willpower forcibly summoning forth his spirit. Taking his spirit as a sword, he slashed out a sword strike toward this place of dark chaos. A dazzling bright light instantly lit up within the darkness. In the room, Yin looked at Gu Yuina's resolute gaze and nodded heavily. "All right." As the words fell, a pair of hands landed simultaneously on her and Gu Yuina's wrists. "No, I disagree. Machen, you're awake." Gu Yuina and Yin eagerly pounced over, carefully embracing Qian Machen's weak body. "I said I would accompany you until the end of time. How could I break my promise?" "Yin, put away your domain." Yin softly said, "All right." Qian Machen, regaining consciousness, gave the 3 women a pillar of support. His weakness was only temporary. He would be fine after recuperating for a little over a month. Hearing the commotion, Bibi Dong let the children in. Qian Machen hugged his daughter, patted the shoulders of the children, and chatted with them for a good while before finally shaking off this group of chatterbox little fellows. "Nana, help me call the old master." Gu Yuina's figure instantly vanished, and a moment later she and Qian Dailiu appeared once again. "Brat, you just woke up and aren't properly resting. What are you making a fuss about again?" Qian Dailiu glared at Qian Machen irritably. "Dad, Nana, feel your own realm. Is there any possibility of advancing further?" As soon as those words were spoken, Gu Yuina and Qian Dailiu's expressions changed and they immediately began to perceive. A moment later, Gu Yuina opened her eyes first. It seems the blockade of the Douluo continent has loosened a bit by about 10%. A trace of strangeness likewise flashed in Qian Dailiu's eyes. Brat, how come this old man feels like he can take another half step forward? You can just go ahead, elder. The old ancestor of the Qian family, big brother, sister, and I cannot take over the burden on your shoulders. This something you stirred up during the lightning tribulation. Qian Dailiu snorted, quickly figured out that something was wrong and directly questioned him. That's right. Qian Mochen did not conceal it. Rules of the Douluo continent are restricted by the god realm. To become a 100-level god, one must either inherit a god position or rely on faith to become a god. I forced a breakthrough to the 100 level, which the rules do not allow, so I took the opportunity to trick that rule during the lightning tribulation. Chapter 100. Re-entering Sea God Island, Bo Seixi's path to becoming a god. A hint of complexity and heartache flickered in Qian Dailiu's eyes. Qian Mochen said these words so casually, but having witnessed Qian Mochen's undergoing tribulation, Qian Dailiu knew that even 10 of himself would not be able to successfully survive under that destructive lightning tribulation. Dad, you haven't seen younger sister in almost a year. When do you plan to make another trip to see God? Had lived in Spirit City until she was 6 years old, and was only brought back to see God Island by Bo Seixi after her spirit awakening. Every year she would set aside 2 or 3 months to return to Spirit City. After several years in seclusion and not seeing that chirping younger sister for a long time, Qian Mochen truly missed her a bit. Mentioning his precious daughter, Qian Dailiu's expression became much more amiable. Could I possibly leave now? At the very least, we have to wait until your injuries improve somewhat. Then how about this, we take a trip to see God Island in a month? I plan to bring Zuer along. What do you want to do? Qian Dailiu was somewhat vigilant. Zuer's cultivate progress is a bit slow right now, so I plan to let her take advantage of the sea god. Qian Mochen spread his hands innocently. He was doing it all for his obedient daughter with not a single ounce of other intentions. Qian Dailiu was almost so angry he laughed. You call a 12-year-old spirit king slow in cultivate, then you find me someone who cultivates faster. Dad, the tests of the god position legacy are a rare benefit. Since the children of our family have this opportunity, naturally we cannot waste it. Just think about it, in the future your grandsons and granddaughters will all be titled Douluo. That scene is definitely something everyone will envy. Our old ancestor is gone, and the tests won't be able to hold out for much longer, but the sea god is still in his prime. Besides, Mom is now the next sea god, so the sea god will be part of our family in the future. Using a bit of the sea god beforehand, he certainly won't mind. Qian Dailiu smacked his lips a few times. This unfilial son's crooked logic actually seemed to make some sense. Anyway, the sea people over at Sea God Island all had to go receive the sacred pillar trials, so what was wrong with adding a few more children from his own family? Besides Zuer, who else do you want to take? That group of my nephews and nieces definitely have to go. Qian Mochen began counting on his fingers. Right, old dad, help me ask Uncle Golden Crocodile and the others to see if any of their grandchildren want to go. Of course, this requires merit points. Let's symbolically collect 50,000 from each person. Alright, 50,000 merit points really wasn't much for a group of Super Douluo above level 95. Qian Dailiu transmitted the message to Golden Crocodile and a few other old brothers. Without even thinking, Golden Crocodile and the others immediately made a decision. Brother, help us thank nephew Mochen. That's right, big brother Mochen is a good child. Whenever there are benefits, he never forgets us uncles. Big brother, with so many children going out, do they need guards? I'm still young, I can go watch over the children. I can do it too. Every single high priest's attitude was extremely positive, and their eyes even carried a hint of enthusiasm. Reaching their current position, all they hoped for was the prosperity of their family. Qian Dailiu had also told them what the sacred pillar trials of Sea God Island were. As long as their descendants weren't useless, after passing the trials, the absolute worst they would be in the future was a spirit Douluo. Alright, you all go back and prepare. 2 children per family, 50,000 merit points per person. Golden Crocodile, you and Qianjun come with me. At that time, I'll trouble you both to protect this group of children. No problem. Big brother, you can leave it to us with peace of mind. The 2 Douluo, Golden Crocodile and Qianjun, exchanged glances, both of their eyes carrying a hint of excitement. A month later, Qian Mochen and a party of around 100 people boarded a ship and sailed towards Sea God Island. On Sea God Island, upon receiving the news that her father, older brother and sister-in-law were coming, Kair ran to the seaside every day to look out, and every time Bo Seixi had to urge her before she would return home. Mom, why haven't older brother and the others arrived yet? Kair slumped listlessly over the table, poking at the rice in her bowl. Bo Seixi calmly picked up some food with her chopsticks. Your older brother and the others should have just set out to sea at this time. It will take at least half a month for them to get here. It's still going to take that long. Kair sighed sorrowfully. Her eyeballs suddenly rolled and she ran to Bo Seixi's side, hugging her arm and starting to act spoiled. Mom, why don't you bring me along to go welcome older brother, and then we can take a boat back together? No. Haven't you finished your cultivate for today? With just a glance from Bo Saixi, Kair directly wilted. She let out an "oh," picked up her rice bowl, and the usually delicious food instantly lost its flavor. 2 days later, Kair truly couldn't suppress the longing in her heart and quietly ran to the seaside to call out. Zio by Big Sister. Zio by Big Sister. Soon, a massive devil spirit great white shark appeared by the shore, shook its body, transformed into human form and landed beside Kair. Kair, what is it? Kair grabbed Zio by in a hug and started acting spoiled with a cheeky smile. Zio by Big Sister, my older brother and the others are arriving soon. I'm afraid they won't be able to find the way to Sea God Island. Can you take me to find older brother? Please, Zio by Big Sister. Zio by looked at Kair helplessly. Stop shaking me or Big Sister is going to be shaken apart in a moment. Does your mother know? Kair unnaturally averted her gaze, her tone carrying a hint of a guilty conscience. Mom agreed to it too. She definitely hadn't told her mom. Kair knew that if Bo Saixi knew her thoughts, she would definitely not agree. But as long as she found her older brother and dad and acted spoiled, dad would help her and mom wouldn't life Kai either. As soon as Zio Bai saw Kair's appearance, she knew the little girl was going behind the first priest's back. She spoke with Kair while simultaneously transmitting a voice message to the first priest, telling her of Kair's plan. Soon, the first priest had a response. Zio Bai, trouble you to escort this child for a leg of the journey. Let her suffer a bit more out at sea. With the first priest's consent, Zio Bai did not hesitate and immediately agreed. That's wonderful. Kair hugged Zio Bai and cheered, her voice carrying a sense of urging. Zio Bai, big sister, let's go right now. She was worried that if they delayed for even one more second, the possibility of being caught by mom would increase by another layer. Where is your ship? I don't want it anymore. My food and change of clothes are all placed inside the storage ring. Let's hurry and go, I beg you, Zio Bai, big sister Tilda. All right. Zio Bai nodded in agreement helplessly. Originally, she had planned to let Kair bring a boat of her own, even if it was just a small boat that could only hold one person. At least she would have a place to rest her feet out at sea. Kair, don't blame Zio Bai, big sister. This was all your own choice, so you must endure the hardship that follows. All right, then let's set off. Zio Bai leaped up, restored her true form, and landed on the sea. Kair cheered joyfully, leaped into the air, and her body landed steadily on Zio Bai's back. Oh, setting off.